I wanted to comment really briefly on something that Will was saying, and that was that he was encouraging you to go to jail for your beliefs, and I think that's noble. But I don't want to encourage you to go to jail for your beliefs. I would much rather you encourage the person who is trying to arrest you to come to your beliefs and stop arresting you. That's just the precursor of it. So I also created a statement, and I'll probably stay mostly on it because I timed it and it's good for this end of this first session. I really appreciate all of the people who have spoken today and their personal stories. Mine is a personal story, but it's also the beginning of the next step for what I see myself doing, which is creating community. So let me just go ahead and read if you're okay with that. It all comes down to one major thing: we want community. I sought educational credentials thinking I was seeking a teaching position, thinking I wanted to see the spark of creative ignition in the eyes of my students. One thing that we didn't cover when I was introduced is I'm a sculptor. What I sculpt in is the earth. I do earth art, and I cohese that with my shamanic practice to do healing work on the earth. Last year in December, I created a worldwide spiraling event that took place in 320 places around the world, simultaneously at exactly noon here on December 7th, which is my birthday. So I just invested myself in it that way, and it was a really big event. If I can get a chance later on today, I will show some slides of that event, but not right now. Finding the spark of creativity in the eyes of my students was really important to me. I was going back to get an MFA degree so I could go back to teaching. I taught for 10 years in New York City at 5 different colleges. Now I am at a place where I don't see myself teaching in quite that same way. It's all profoundly true that I wanted to see that spark of ignition, but there is a deeper level, a camaraderie or fellowship of creative community. It was the connection between myself and the student, between the other artists and myself, and between me and the other faculty, this peer connection that I sought. I came to see this as I moved through the educational process. I culminated from my MFA degree studies, understanding that if there is one thing that I can help generate in this world, it is the creation of fair and open community. For the past 20 years, through the work I do on an energetic plane, as a shaman and activist, I had been working on the building blocks of just this community effort. Inherent energetics, as I define it, is the power that runs through and in all aspects of life, objects, social and political interactions. It is a force that we have yet to be able to scientifically quantify. It has a force. It is present in the void of space and in the center of the earth, in a diamond and in a thought. Some view it as the space between, and scientifically it's the electromagnetic force, gravity, God, ether, and cosmic superimposition. In working with this energy, we can add to our communication and our communities. We generate energetic worlds in everything we do and in everything we think, we feel, and we say. We also are moved and pushed to go with the flow of everyone else's efforts, thoughts, and actions. Then that gets compounded with a natural world so removed from our conscious connection, all the while creating the same generated energetic waves. And the earth right down to the core, all of that has this energetic field that we are always interacting with. And right now, we are not interacting with it as well as we were 1,000 years ago. We have given ourselves to the scientific model of society. We have given the power of our own energy, of our own thoughts, to authorities outside of ourselves. And we need to reclaim that. We need to bring that back to ourselves. There's a great deal of scientific and intuitive initiatives happening right now that reflect on the energetic forces of thought. Dr. William Tiller is perhaps the most well-known of the physicists who have dedicated many years of their lives to understanding that things change based upon how they are perceived and interacted with. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, but it is a very good example of that, and he's the physicist who speaks throughout that movie. He's interjected within it. How we change things with the power of our minds through intention is becoming more and more of a science. His work and the more intuitive and less scientific approach of Masaru Emoto, who does the crystalline work with water, has brought the science of psychoenergetics in alignment with modern quantum physics to the forefront of our conscious social understanding. There are more older studies of fakirs and charlatans in the Far East, yogis and gurus, and hydrologists and physicists in Europe and Asia from the last century, whose work has been complementary to the work of Dr. Bill and Dr. Emoto. In particular is the work with water of Victor Schauberger. The intuitive work of many of today's shamanic lineages can be reflected in some of the science that he has developed, and working with water created vortexes that create energy. It is with this in mind and using the creative vector of earth art and ecoactivism that I bring forth this exploration of the power of the mind. In this gathering, I would love to see us explore some aspects of incorporating energetic forces while doing social, political, and artistic actions. In my own work, I have cohesed the shamanic practice of trancing with a spiral practice of standing on ground that has been damaged. Particularly, I did a series of works on the sandbars that were left behind by Irene. In our earliest cultures, the natural predation of the animal kingdom dominated our fear-based lives. We always had to guard against or destroy our competition for resources. Our efforts flowed with the stream of consciousness dominant at the time for survival, for sustenance, and even for shelter. But especially here, we created bands and societies of community. These were strongly dominated by the most powerful and those who are willing to acquiesce to those dominant beings. But there developed systems of community health. The earliest shamans were the medicine men, the witch doctors, and the midwives of our clan-like existence. We granted them great status, often greater than the dominant leaders, as they addressed the needs of the whole group or were cast out as crazy people. Their position did not arrive from power over as much as power within, and their skill with herbs, their ability to seemingly intercede with the deities our predecessors feared and revered. It was their wit that set them apart from the group and afforded them some status not to be trifled with. It was their ability to create a release valve for the pressure and the trauma of their community, their ability to help the injured and to find the cause of the illness and cast the darkness away. Often this was a theatrical and deeply symbolic psychological healing. The dance to shed the darkness or the rattles to cast out the bad spirits all contributed to a shared belief that there was change that took place, and with enough resonant belief, the energy would change and health was successfully returned. If not, the spirits were not adequately appeased, and that was just it. The manifestations of transition are well documented in ritualistic histories. In our modern language, we hold limited credibility to these myths. We have chosen to give our belief to the scientific world and thus allowed the externalization of our worship of deities to become ingrained belief in science. There is little difference when you look at the inherent energetic principles of belief and intention. When you empower a thought by an action and you create a group consciousness surrounding that thought, that has a lot more energy and power. The inherent energy of that thought becomes multiplied. What I'm speaking to here today really is an attempt at getting us to not just take action and go to jail and to stand for our beliefs, but to put out the energy behind those beliefs, to send out into the world our inherent energetic force to change the world. We speak so often in these gatherings of the fruitlessness of our effort, that we are either approaching or past the critical point where we can change things. We are not past that point if we believe, if we have faith that the world will change with our energetic push. I'm off page here. But my thoughts about how we as a community can invest into our other communities, the communities we're going back to, is to bring back a consciousness of shared belief, where faith comes into this, where our religious and our spiritual choices come into this, are how we convince others to believe that things will change and to believe that it's not fruitless and to not get caught up in the belief that it's not going to change, that it's not going to get that money to the right places, that it's not going to, that our faith will bring us to a place where we change the world around us on an energetic level, and it can heal. In some of the places where I have done my energetic healing, where I've done the swirlings that I have done, I have seen nature come back and do the same pathway that I did. There was a sandbar in the middle of an overwashed reservoir that was no longer usable. And I did a spiral in it. And a couple of weeks later, the water had risen and dropped and risen and dropped and completely washed the spiral away. And a flock of geese had landed there, and they were doing the pattern of my spiral. It's very real. The energetic input that we put into a cause can heavily affect how that cause comes out in the future. So for me, today, what I'd love to see us do is allow that energy to build here and then to spread out into our communities. So my time is up, except for 54 seconds. For my music, I'm going to drum. And what I'm going to do before I drum is I'm going to put myself into a very mild shamanic trance. If anyone wishes to join me in that state of mind, the drum creates a sonic effect. That sonic actually plays with the rhythms in your brain, and it allows you to also go into a deeper trance-like state. I will drum for a few minutes. What I would suggest anyone who wishes to join me in this state, close your eyes, spread your feet till you're comfortable, place your hands in your lap, and just listen to the drum, count your heartbeats, breathe consistently, whatever it takes for you to join me in that moment. Thank you.